I want a new Five Nights at Freddy's game to come out to where it's Five Nights at Freddy's mechanics, bro. I don't want to put, because I didn't like Security Breach. I actually hated Security Breach. And then this one looks the same, bro. Not gonna lie. My favorite Five Nights at Freddy's game was Pizzeria Simulator. That game was slightly different than the rest of all the other Five Nights at Freddy's games. And I love Five Nights at Freddy's, but I ain't even cooking to Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm really not even cooking them. Sister Location was goated. They were all the same type of premise, but with different variations without straying away from the original thing that makes it good.
Yeah, so CaseOh's remarks here represent a growing sentiment in the FNAF community, and he's not the only one that feels this way. But before we get to that, let's start at the beginning. From 2014 to 2018, you know, back when dinosaurs were around and everything was black and white, Five Nights at Freddy's games were famous for having a certain unique gameplay loop. You were situated in one room with multiple access points, and various threats would come after you, each with a different point of entry or a gameplay mechanic. Deterring some of them would leave you open to others, leading to a stressful scenario of juggling multiple threats without getting overwhelmed or just panicking and mashing escape to shut down the game before. Okay, so a lot has changed since the days when Scott Cawthon would develop FNAF games on his own. He's long since taken a step back from directly developing games, instead partnering with other studios, and now acting more or less like an overseer. He contributes to the story of every new game, but isn't the one designing the levels and gameplay anymore. I just want to state, I'm perfectly fine with this. Scott has earned his right to take it easy and enjoy his success, though it's clear he's still working very hard, writing scripts for big budget movies, releasing a ton of books, and writing stories for new games, etc. He loves to work. And it's great that he loves to work. I'd never want him to work on something he doesn't want to work on. That being said, every artist, every creator is unique, and their voice shines through in whatever medium they're working in. FNAF games without Scott will always feel different, and that's totally fine. I'm open to this. I want Steel Wool Studios, the primary developers of new FNAF games, to inject their own styles and creativity into their releases. I wouldn't want them to emulate Scott, nor would I want Scott to be forced to be more involved in game development. That being said, I would be lying if I didn't admit to feeling that Five Nights at Freddy's games have changed a little too much. Earlier, I was describing how classic FNAF games would have you defend yourself from threats in a single place for the duration of the night or level. FNAF games post Scott Cawthon have definitely taken a different approach, with many drawing comparisons to other mascot horror games such as Bendy and the Ink Machine and Poppy Playtime. Instead of a gameplay loop of juggling threats that grow more and more aggressive as the game progresses, some newer FNAF games are structured more as first-person exploration games that require you to stealth around threats and go to point A in the facility you're in to turn on the generator, then go to room B and get an upgrade. And that is fun. I do love classic survival horror games like Resident Evil that do this, but it isn't as unique, nor is it what made the original game stand out to me and to many others.
When you have your favorite food from your childhood or something and you're eating it and you've been looking forward to it for a long time, you haven't had it in years, and then you go to take a bite and you realize that they changed the recipe, and it's not that it's not good, but it's not what you've really wanted, you know? And it sucks to say that, and it probably sucks to hear that, but it's true. I'm not going to be dishonest here, and I don't even know if there's any value in what I'm saying, but, you know, I'm just speaking what I feel.
I can relate a lot to what Mark is saying here, and it makes me pretty sad. As a fan since the beginning, his classic playthroughs are probably my favorite memories of being a fan of the franchise. Heck, collecting footage from his old playthroughs for this video made me super nostalgic. So hearing him talk about how modern day FNAF gameplay just isn't quite what he wants anymore, it makes me sad. And I get it. I really get it. It's like he's not saying the new game is bad. I'm pretty sure he had a fun time playing it, just like I did. It's not what blew us away the first time, I guess. I would like to mention that Steel Wool Studios has now released 4 games, and only 2 of them are structured like this. Security Breach, its DLC Ruin, and the recently released Secret of the Mimic. Their other 2 games, Help Wanted 1 and Help Wanted 2, do have stationary gameplay more akin to classic FNAF, but they also serve as a collection of brief minigames, and many of them don't have the depth that a old school FNAF night would have. Is it my own personal bias? Maybe, probably. I recently played a FNAF fan game called Showtime: The Awakening, and I loved it. It had a fun gameplay loop that I enjoyed, even in the later nights where the threats became more hectic and aggressive. Even when the gameplay was shaken up with new threats, I still felt like I was improving, and my improvement meant I was consistent with the game's increase in difficulty. Five Nights at Freddy's has evolved, I get that, but I found this fan game's attempts at evolving classic FNAF gameplay a lot more engaging than just throwing everything from before away and replacing it with a gameplay structure that feels a little more generic, if I'm being honest. I know some people will say the classic gameplay style is limited or that it's played out, but so many fan games shake that style up so well, so I know it's still possible to do in the official series. I didn't hate Security Breach or Secret of the Mimic, by the way. There's a lot I do enjoy, but after the 15th run down this hallway, get cornered by something, conveniently fall through a collapsing floor vent, a chase sequence that's mostly just holding forward, and ultimately watching the animatronic get crushed by something or destroyed, I'm a little tired. Security Breach's DLC, Ruin, actually had some interesting ideas with its virtual world and how you can solve puzzles while exposing yourself to a new threat that's only after you in the virtual world. That experience was pretty short, and even that began following the same formula I listed earlier. At the end of the day, I love Five Nights at Freddy's, and it's always going to have a special place in my heart. I can't say I genuinely believe the way the series is changing is an evolution of what came before. It kind of feels like a less exciting replacement. An idea I had for a potential solution could be to have both gameplay styles, like one game that's more classic gameplay, followed by another game that's more like modern gameplay. You know, kind of like how Zelda does it with 2D Zeldas and 3D Zeldas. How we'll get a big 3D release with new mechanics and a more modern day gameplay style, and then we'll get a 2D Zelda that's top down and not exactly modern day gameplay, but still cool. I have a feeling that could work really well with FNAF. A couple of videos ago, I talked about a Fredbear's Family Diner game. What if that followed classic FNAF gameplay? It could even be another developer working on that. We got Mega Cat, who made the Into the Pit game, and that was pixel graphic gameplay. We could get another indie dev, maybe, to make classic FNAF gameplay. Like, maybe one of the fan game devs can be brought on by Scott to make official FNAF games. That'd be cool. Then we'd get the sequel to Secret of the Mimic, is modern day FNAF game. Ultimately, it's up to them, of course, and if that's not a direction they want to go with the series, then that's that. But I think it would be a nice way to please everybody. At least that was the best I could come up with. Thanks for listening to me vent. If you guys agree, or even if you passionately disagree, let me know in the comments. I read them all, though sometimes it takes me a while to catch up. Sorry about that. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time. Bye!